Welcome back to The Careful Diver. My name is Juji Carminati. Today's video is 5 skills you learn in open water and why they matter or don't. One of them doesn't matter anymore. First one, when you went through your open water course, I am sure that you learned how to disconnect your LP hose, right? And that is the hose that goes down on your BC and it basically goes to your inflator button. Okay. And you must be wondering, why do I have to learn how to disconnect this? That's so weird, right? Also, really even weirder, you have to learn how to disconnect it, but you don't actually have to learn how to reconnect it. Why? Here's why. When your LP hose fails, it will fail very often in the open position. When your inflator button fails, especially your inflator button that fails, to be fair, it will fail in the open position. And what does that mean? It means it's going to leak into your BCD. And if it's leaking into your BCD, it is going to inflate it and cause an uncontrolled ascent. Now, it can be a really small leak. It has happened to me. Basically, I kept feeling that I could keep emptying it. And then 5 minutes later, I would have to empty it again. And I'm like, where did the air come from? That's where it came from. So the reason you'll learn to disconnect your LP hose is because the most likely failure is open. And in that case, you need to disconnect it so that you don't have an uncontrolled ascent. Which brings me to the second skill that you learn in open water, oral inflate. Now, you may ask yourself, why do I have to learn how to do this? Because it seems like the only reason you would need to know that is if you ran out of air, right? If you ran out of air and you're pressing on your inflate button and there's no air in your tank, then you're going to have nothing to inflate your BCD. And you may be telling yourself, well, I'm never going to run out of air, so this is kind of useless. But it's not. And now you should probably start figuring out why. If you have a runaway ascent because of a inflator button that is stuck on open, you are going to disconnect the LP hose underwater. Once you've disconnected that LP hose and you get to the surface, you are not going to spend your time messing around with it trying to reconnect it. No, what you're going to do both at the surface and if you are deep enough on your way up to put a little air in your BCD is do an oral inflate. And that's actually why it's important to learn how to do an oral inflate, but not only that, how to regulate your oral inflation, how to do just a little breath versus a big breath, which you're really never going to need for an ascent, and really be able to calibrate how long you press on that deflate button. You blow into your inflate button. And I mean that, right? You actually have to press on your deflate button, and then you have to blow in to inflate. Then you let go of your deflate button, and that allows you to put air in your BCD. So those are the reasons you have to learn those two kind of weird skills. Third skill you have to learn, emergency weight drop. If you are in an open water class, this is what it's going to look like. They're going to tell you, your instructor is going to tell you to basically deflate your BCD most of the way or all the way. And you're going to see that you are going to be basically hanging out with water going up right over your head or at your mask or somewhere there. And then you are going to be told to pull out your weights if you're carrying your weights in integrated pockets, or to reach down and undo your belt and drop your weight belt. And what they want you to see is that you will pop up out of the water. Why? Here's why. The greatest danger zone for a diver is actually not underwater. The greater danger zone is at the surface, either when you're coming in or coming out of the water. And the reason is because at the surface, people start taking out their regulators, and that is where you need to be able to maintain buoyancy. And one thing that became clear to the powers that be, the agencies, was that divers were still not realizing that if you just drop your weights, and I know they're expensive, but you know what? How much is your life worth? Literally, $120. So if you are at the surface and you literally just drop your weights, you will pop up. You will simply float, period. With no air in your BCD, with nothing else, you are going to float because the only thing that gets you down under the water are those weights. And that is the reason that you practice that skill, to really experience the fact that you will float effortlessly with all of your gear on you, regardless of how heavy it feels when you're walking around with it, if you just drop those weights. And that is also why it is extremely important to not put your weights into your pockets, your literal BCD pockets, or even worse, inside your dry suit if you're a dry suit diver. You want to have the majority of your weights at a place where you can ditch them. Next skill that is kind of weird, but is actually very helpful for related reasons, is the underwater navigation exercise for open water divers. Now, you were an open water diver and you probably had to do a certain distance swim there and back with your compass. So you're looking at your compass and you're going out, I don't know, it can be like 30 feet, 20 feet, whatever it is. Different agencies have different rules. Then you do 180 and you come straight back. And you may be wondering, I don't know how that's helpful, because it's one straight line going there and back, and maybe you don't even feel that confident in your use of a compass after that. So there's two reasons I actually think this skill is very helpful. The first one is it is an introduction to using your compass. It's not teaching you underwater navigation. In fact, there's a whole other specialty for underwater navigation. And I will tell you that as a person who really is not good at underwater navigation 24 years later. But one, it's just an introduction to the concept. Fine. But here's why I actually think it is helpful. You may not use a compass for a long time if you're an open water diver. You will go out, there'll be a dive master, they take you around. There's not a lot of opportunities that you're out and about on your own. I mean, that didn't happen to us in quite a while, and it didn't happen for a long while after we had started diving. But it's very helpful because you will be holding something else in your hand. And you will be looking at something else very intently. You know what that is? A camera. Every open water diver wants to jump in with their camera, with their GoPro or their camera or whatever it is that they're bringing down. You know what that is? That replicates what it's like when you're looking at your compass. And if you will notice, when you did your compass skill, you usually, unless you're exception, usually students will immediately go immediately down or immediately up. That they will completely lose their buoyancy. Completely. And to me, that's a really good lesson in teaching you, hey, when you start using a camera, it is going to challenge your buoyancy. So I found that actually encouraging students to do that with their compass before they jump in and start taking cameras and take videos and whatever it is a very good way for them to really work on their buoyancy when they are distracted or thinking about something else, which is also why that exercise, the navigation exercise, is done in pairs so that one of you controls the depth and the other one looks at the direction, which may be something you want to implement with your buddy, especially when you're starting out. One of you has the camera, and the other person makes sure that you do not completely lose all sense of your buoyancy and position in the water column. Last thing that you learn in open water, and this time you are right to think it's weird, and also it's incorrect, but it's still taught very much. When you start learning scuba diving, you will see instructors that tell you to open your tank all the way and then come back a quarter turn. That is no longer necessary. It hasn't been necessary for a very long time. But because it was necessary for a while, it basically made its way into the various teaching. It's not in the curriculum, but very teaching styles. And now it's kind of stuck there. So it used to be that tanks, the first stage, had a particular piece that would stay stuck, especially if water got cold. And I'm actually going to link a really amazing video. It's a Tech Tips, and he's a fantastic scuba diving tech, and he creates these great videos. And so he does a much better job than I could explaining it. So I'm going to drop it in the comments. But the point being that nowadays the valves are built such that they no longer get stuck. And so you no longer have to have that fear that if you open your tank all the way, it's going to stay stuck open. So you can forget about that. Your tank for recreational diving goes open all the way, and forget about the quarter turn back. And that is it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it was helpful. As always, your likes and subscriptions help me with the algorithm. So please like and subscribe. My name is Judy Carminati. I am the Careful Diver. Thank you for watching this video. And as always, dive safe.